Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Elizabeth. If you don't know me, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I know that there are so many videos like this out there, and I know because I've watched them as I've gone through the first trimester. I'm 16 weeks with my first baby and I'm due in July. I feel like this whole pregnancy is really just flying by, but ultimately I'm very thankful to be out of the first trimester because it definitely had some rough moments, so I'm going to talk about all of that right now. It's a little bit overwhelming to know like where do I start in talking about the first trimester, but I did take some notes on my phone each week as I was going through different things or the same things, and I think I'm just going to start at the very beginning. I want to start actually before I even got my positive pregnancy test. So in that whole week leading up to me taking the test and getting a positive, I was having just normal period symptoms. So for about a week prior, I was feeling every once in a while some really mild cramping, which was super normal for me. And in my last video, I talked about how I just felt exactly like I was going to start my period, and that's why I was so shocked. I found out that I was pregnant. I got my positive test a few days before 4 weeks. So like maybe 3 weeks and 5 days, or 3 weeks, 6 days, something like that. So really close to the 4-week mark. So yeah, I'd been having that cramping for about a week. I've been feeling pretty weepy, but again, that just feels like a normal period symptom, so I didn't think anything of it. My boobs were definitely sore, but again, nothing out of the ordinary. The only thing that I feel like maybe was a little bit different, but I don't know if this was just a coincidence, is that I was starting to have some like pubic bone pain if I would lay too long in bed. And this is something I've experienced before, but I was experiencing it pretty consistently in that week leading up to getting my positive test. And then after that it went away. So I don't know if that was period related. I have no idea, but that is the only thing that was a little bit different in the week prior to my positive test. So I found out I was pregnant, and then the next day or the day after that, I hit 4 weeks pregnant. And then a couple days later, I started to kind of experience a loss of appetite. I wasn't nauseous, I wasn't feeling sick, but I was definitely really disinterested in food is the best way that I can describe it. And I kind of had to force myself to eat, and I wasn't sure if it was just kind of like an excited tummy, you know. And now looking back, having gone through the whole first trimester, I think it was a first pregnancy symptom. I also wrote that I was needing to go to bed really early this week, which I normally like to go to bed early anyway, but I remember getting in bed at like 7, 8 o'clock this week and just feeling really tired. And then I was waking up every night at like 3 a.m. And I gotta say, I'm still pretty much waking up at 3 a.m. every night in the middle of the night. And for the most part, I can usually get myself back to sleep pretty quickly. But I have had some rough nights here and there where I've laid awake for a really long time. Yeah, waking up at 3 a.m. and then I'd go back to sleep for a couple of hours, and then I'd wake up at about 5:45. So just waking up really early. And I had watched somebody else's first trimester video, and I remember this really stood out to me because I hadn't seen this anywhere else, that she said that during pregnancy she noticed that she was waking up really early for some reason, like 5:30, 6 o'clock, just eyes open, totally awake and ready for the day. And that's how I have felt pretty much through my whole pregnancy. I wrote that I was having little twinges of pain kind of in my uterus area, and I was still having some cramping feelings too, just intermittently, like just like a period cramp, but pretty mild, nothing too painful, and then it would go away. But in addition to the cramping, I was having these little twinges of just like little shooting pains. Just kind of felt like a growing, stretching sensation. Okay, at 5 weeks, I'm looking at my phone here, I wrote, still struggling to find foods that sound good, but no nausea. Feel sad when I'm hungry because now I have to think of what to eat. Probably one of the trickiest things about the first trimester is just finding foods that sound palatable. and like you can stomach it at that time. I wrote that I was still having occasional cramping, which this is something that I experienced through the whole first trimester. So the next thing that I wrote on here at 5 weeks, and I think this started at about 5.5 weeks, it says gag reflex is strong. And I need to put my phone down and elaborate on that, because that was my worst symptom through the whole first trimester and even into the second trimester. I'm, like I said, 16 weeks right now, and this only just went away a week ago, exactly a week ago. So I have been a week free of this terrible symptom. I've kind of just called it to other people, I've called it sickness or morning sickness, because it's really, really difficult feeling for me to explain. My morning sickness did not play out at all like I thought it was going to. It didn't feel anything like I thought it was going to. So I know people describe morning sickness as like nausea and feeling sick to your stomach all the time. I really didn't experience too much of what I would consider nausea, but what I did experience was, so not a feeling of like upset stomach, like my stomach didn't feel sick. I felt sick in here. It was kind of this constant feeling of my body wants to throw up, right? Like in here, wants to just throw up and gag and dry heave all the time. It wouldn't even necessarily be triggered by anything. Sometimes it would, for sure. But it was just this feeling that I had, like right here, just constantly wanting to throw up. When I would get hungry, I would get more on the nauseous side of things, but for the most part, it wasn't coming from my stomach, it was coming from right here. And so I was throwing up pretty much every day, every single day throughout the first trimester. So I wrote in here, actually, I wrote, gag reflex is strong, feel like I could gag or throw up at any moment, but it's not the same feeling as nausea. The nausea doesn't cause the gag causes the nausea. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I don't know if anybody has experienced, I'm sure somebody has experienced it this way too, but it's just not what I ever heard people describe. I would still have to have my little, sorry, this is gross, but I would have to have my little pupil with me kind of all the time because I didn't know when it was gonna hit, and sometimes it would just come on so strong. I also wrote that sometimes it was triggered by coughing, brushing my teeth. This was a big one. I started to feel really scared to brush my teeth at night because especially at night, this gaggy feeling was really, really, really strong. And brushing my teeth would, a lot of nights, make me throw up. I wrote that this was the first time I had to run to the toilet to throw up, and that was about 5.5 weeks. And like I said, continued on from there to 15 weeks. It was really, really rough, and I started to feel like there's no way that this is just gonna go away one day. And I'm sure a lot of people feel like that when you're kind of in the height of feeling sick or feeling off in pregnancy, just not feeling like yourself. You start to wonder, is this ever actually gonna go away? Am I gonna wake up one day and feel normal? And I thankfully reached that point, like I said, a week ago. So I've been feeling really, really good this week. But that's the second trimester, so I won't get into that. At 6 weeks, I wrote that morning sickness is in full swing. So I do remember that I did start to experience more nausea, like I said, at 6 weeks, but mostly just if I would get hungry. And then when I would eat, the nausea would go away, the gaggy feeling would persist, and I would still be throwing up all the time. I wrote that I feel much better after throwing up and I take advantage of that time to eat something. I was also definitely having a lot of food aversions, so I was eating out a lot because foods at home just sounded really, really gross. And I wrote that I had to have Mark get me toast in the middle of the night. I had to wake up Mark, and he is an angel, and he went and got me some peanut butter toast just in the middle of the night. I wrote, still cramping occasionally, freaks me out every time, even though I know it's normal. So next I wrote, scary day where I almost fainted. I had this one episode where I came really, really close to fainting, and thankfully that never happened again, but it was kind of freaky. And then I wrote that I ate an apple for the first time in probably a year. So fruit was starting to sound really, really good to me, this week it was one of the only things that sounded good, and I am not normally that much of a fruit person, but this week I ate an apple. At 7 weeks, I wrote that I was still throwing up daily. I was feeling really weak and shaky and just like low blood sugary a lot of the time. And I was, again, still having a hard time eating foods and finding things that sounded good. And I wrote that I was tired. And I remember for a couple of weeks, like around 7 and 8 weeks, I was napping for like multiple hours during the day. I would lay on the couch or in the bed and I would put on the show Monk, which if you've never seen the show Monk, it's so good, but it's like my comfort show and I've seen all of it. So I would put on Monk and I would sleep through like 3 or 4 episodes at a time. This week I got a cold, which thankfully only lasted a few days and it wasn't too bad. And then I wrote so aware of the constant taste in my mouth. And this was another symptom that I had through the whole first trimester that really bothered me. So around this time, around 7 weeks, I just felt like I had the nastiest taste in my mouth, and I couldn't tell if it was like an actual nasty taste or if I was just really aware of what my normal mouth tasted like. And it was really gross, so I started to need to chew gum a lot of the time, and that helped a lot. And then I wrote feeling exhausted. Every time I try to get up to do something, everything in my body is telling me to sit back down. And I felt like just the normal day-to-day tasks started to seem like really difficult to do, like just simple things like folding laundry or doing the dishes, which doing the dishes was also hard because of the smells. At 8 weeks, I wrote twitching eyes, and my eye just started twitching as I was reading this. So this is something that has continued to happen, and I think this is pretty normal in pregnancy. I wrote long hair on my tummy. I remember taking a bath this week and looking down at my tummy and just seeing these like long hairs, and I think that's a pregnancy thing. Trying to think of what I can eat is exhausting, like standing in front of the fridge in tears, exhausting. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then I wrote in all caps, strawberries. So I think this is the week that my strawberry obsession started kicking in, and I ate so many strawberries. I haven't been having them as much lately, but for a while that was like all that sounded good. So Mark was always just washing strawberries for me, chopping them up, and bringing me just bowls of strawberries. At 9 weeks, I wrote still throwing up, but having better days too. So I remember having some like pretty good days kind of thrown in there, and then also some still pretty bad days. Again, so aware of the taste in my mouth, have to chew gum almost constantly. The weepiness has hit, and I think the reason I wrote this is I had seen somebody's reel that I follow on Instagram, and it was this reel of her and her husband taking their kids to Disney World, and I cried watching this reel. And then I watched it again later and I cried again, and I remember thinking this is some hormones going on. At 12 weeks, I was still experiencing all the things, the gagginess, the throwing up, the taste in my mouth. I wrote lots of stretching, shooting pains down the middle of my tummy, and I texted my midwife about this because I just assumed it felt like it was just ligaments stretching out. But I didn't think it was what they call round ligament pain because it wasn't on the sides of my tummy. It was just like straight down the middle. But it did just feel like this kind of ligament stretching. So I asked my midwife about it, and she said that that was exactly what it was. And then at 13 weeks, still again, all those same things, throwing up, gagging, all of that. But I wrote so much phlegm, which is just as gross as it sounds. I felt like I just started to get a lot of like phlegm, and I guess that's pregnancy related. I don't really know, but it felt like just an excess of that. It was pretty gross. And then I wrote so thirsty, and I've been experiencing this a lot lately, like the past few weeks, where I am just so thirsty all the time, especially in the middle of the night, and I wake up and I have my big, like, I think it's like 24-ounce water cup, and sometimes I will drink the whole thing just in the middle of the night. I also wrote jaw pain with a question mark, and I wasn't sure if this was pregnancy related, and I think I figured out that it was actually just from the amount of gum that I was chewing. And then I also wrote so much saliva. I felt like I had a lot of extra saliva this week. Super gross. I was having to like spit a lot because it just felt really gross and was making me feel sick to just swallow all of it. Hopefully you were prepared for some just kind of nasty things when you click on this video, because that is a lot of the first trimester is just pretty gross. I feel like around 13-14 weeks a lot of my energy started to come back, and was still taking shorter naps here and there, but I wasn't napping for those like 3-hour stretches like I was, especially around like 7-8 weeks. I feel like that's when I was extremely tired. I'm still taking naps even in the second trimester, but I feel a lot more normal in terms of my energy levels. So that is all that I have written down, and I feel like there's got to be more that I'm forgetting, and I've been sitting here kind of like racking my brain trying to think if there is anything else, but I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching this video. I would so appreciate if you wanted to give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more pregnancy content like this or like vlog style, I would love if you would hit the subscribe button, and I'll be back really soon.